Today we're going to be talking about all of the best CS2 investments out there and breaking them down which ones I think are best. And first up, we've got Covert Items. And right now, Covert Items are definitely the most interested area on this list. Obviously, you've got the trade-ups into the knives, which everyone has been looking at, and everyone's been looking at the potential ROI on those. But it really comes down to the fact that Covert Items have already shot up a lot in value. So you're working off of that current price point rather than the price point we were seeing just a month ago. For me personally, I don't think that this is necessarily a bad investment per se, but you got to remember that Covert Items have now transitioned into a very long-term investment. The prices that we're looking at right now are due to fluctuate, but we're probably going to be seeing them relatively stable over the next longer period as they potentially accrue some value, but they're not going to be anything absolutely crazy like we've seen over the past month. And that's very important if you're trying to make an investment into this area. You realize it's now turned into an investment rather than a quick flip. I don't think coverts are a bad investment. It's very dependent obviously on the collection. Some that are from older collections are most likely going to do better than some that are in the active duty because obviously those cases are still being unboxed a ton, but I don't think coverts are a bad investment by any means, especially the ones that are extremely in demand have shown they're probably going to end up quite profitable. Skinland is today's sponsor, and they're also sponsoring you with a free $10 on your first trade using code MasterShiny. And the best part is you're going to be able to cash that out instantly with their brand new system. They've teamed up with Team Vitality to be the best in the game, offering you the lowest prices when you're coming to buy and the highest prices when you're using their instant cash out feature. They've got tons of different payout options when you're looking to sell, and their marketplace is filled with all of the best skins for all of the best prices. It's where I go to do all of my skins related items, and you should too because they've got the best rates out there right now. Now for me personally, the area that's very high up on my list is going to be the character craft stickers. If you want to look at the overall investment opportunity inside of the CS market right now, the one area that's really been dominating is definitely going to be stickers, and this is no different. Obviously we're looking at a sticker collection here, but it really comes down to the fact that these are very stable, and that's because there's no more of them being created. Obviously there is a large supply out there, but if we want to break it down, the majority of these have some pretty decent application rates, and the prices on them aren't absolutely insane. Now I will definitely say not every sticker inside of this collection is going to be a winner. Personally, I've always focused in on the blue stickers because they're the most accessible to most people, and at the end of the day I want an easy entry for a lot of people, especially when we're talking about a sticker. I think when we're looking at something like this, if we want to look at the application rates, we can see that there is still a decent demand for these stickers. Now it's not anything absolutely insane, and at the end of the day the prices have gone up a fair amount from the time that it was active in the Armory, but I still think there is a lot of opportunity when we're talking about a long-term investment here. Look at everything from Riptide, look at everything from Broken Fang. You can see that it's not going to be a super quick process, but the majority of these are extremely expensive, especially the Riptide stickers. Even the ones that no one wanted still ended up being extremely valuable now because it's been so long, and at the end of the day we will run out of these stickers if people keep applying them, and that's exactly the trajectory I think we're going to follow. Now one area that everyone's been looking at right now is going to be our active duty cases, and this is actually for a pretty good reason. That's because these prices have been dropping down rather significantly in the short term here just because of the overall market shift that we're seeing, and it really comes down to the question of is there profit here, and the answer is absolutely yes. Active duty cases can be one of the most profitable investments you can make out there, but it's very dependent on what price you get in at these. I will say personally, if you look at just the Steam community market page, it seems like they're a lot cheaper than they are. 23 cents for a recoil case. If we want to click on it, it's actually around 40 still, so it's not as bad as it actually seems. But with that being said, I still think there is potential, but I need these prices to drop a little bit more. I still think at the current prices they're a little bit overinflated for what I would want from an active duty investment that we don't know when it's going to get removed, and that's where most of the value comes from an active duty case, especially right now. Now coming to number 4, which is going to be the current Armory items, there is a very hefty amount of potential inside of this area, but it really comes down to what exactly comes next. Now we talked about this in the previous video, but the Armory pretends to be a very interesting area. That's because obviously there is so much profit potential here, but it really comes down to the fact of items getting removed, and we saw that with the graphic collection, and we saw that with the character craft stickers. They shot up in value afterwards. Makes sense. And if we want to look at our current prices inside the Armory, things are very, very dire. We're looking at nearly 100% ROI all across the board, which is not good. That's lower than what we would expect. That's just because of the overall market sentiment right now. I still think there is some very strong potential, especially with some of these, especially the Elemental Craft sticker collection is the one I look at the most. There's a lot of potential when it comes to these, but it really comes down to the fact of them getting removed, which I would not say is a guaranteed bet, at least at this current moment. You can also throw the Fever case in here. Obviously the Fever case is going to be one of the best investments of our time when it actually gets removed, but I think we're a far ways away from that right now, and I don't personally like investing into these items too heavily, especially when they're in the active Armory. The only exception might potentially be the Elemental Craft stickers, just because those are going to shoot up a lot, but still the Armory is okay, but not where I'd put my money right now. Now one other investment that's a little bit more on the projective side is going to be the Budapest Major. Obviously we've got a lot of different things coming in for the Budapest Major. We've got our sticker capsules, we got our autograph capsules, and we've got those souvenir packages along with with potentially the highlight charms that are going to come along with it. A lot of items, a lot of potential investments that I'm personally really excited to see, because I think there is a lot of potential with the Budapest Major here, but we don't have any information just yet, so we can't make an investment, but we can set aside potentially money if that's really what we want to do. I'm definitely looking at the capsule that once again has the 16 teams inside of it. I think there's a very strong potential that people are going to be having some pretty expensive stickers inside of it. Honestly, everything for Budapest seems on the surface right now to be potentially a decent investment. We're not making any investment just yet, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing, and this is an area I'm definitely going to be looking at. Now, talking about our case market, for me, definitely going to be the strongest area for potential investment. If we want to look at the data, we can see that alone. Obviously, if we want to look at our unboxing numbers, they are still heavily inflated, but if we want to look at the previous data we had before it got inflated, we can see how strong the case unboxing market was, and that's something that I really think is not going to go away just because of these latest updates. Honestly, I think some of these cases have gotten even better, and it comes to the older rare cases. Those ones have improved significantly because of the latest updates, and the cheaper rare cases have not improved as much, and I think that's exactly what we see in the current market testament. A lot of our cheaper rare cases right now have not been seeing the most amount of growth, and I don't think that's actually a bad thing. I think that's really just a fact that there's obviously a ton of supply out there for these cheaper rare cases, and some people are liquidating off. They don't want to hold it because they are a little bit nervous. I think that makes it honestly a great time to buy, but it does make sense. Obviously, some of these cases are still being held by people that got them for absolutely free, because it wasn't that long ago that these cases were dropping. In my personal opinion, I think the cheaper rare case market is one of the strongest inside the game right now when it comes to an opportunity. It's definitely not the area that the hype has right now, but it's going to come back to it. It always does, and at the end of the day, the unboxing numbers right now are still strong, so theoretically, these are becoming a better investment by the day, and it's not an area I would personally pass up if I'm trying to make an investment. Now, one area that consistently falls under the radar a fair amount is going to be the agent market, and right now, I would honestly say if you're trying to get into some agents, it could be a very opportune time. These things have been slipping a fair amount, and honestly, they just don't have the overall interest right now, but they have shown that they are quite resilient, which is actually quite surprising. At the end of the day, I don't think agents are going to be the best investment out there, but if you're trying to make an investment into them, I think honestly right now could be probably one of the better times to do so, especially if you want them to just play the game. I think right now is probably going to be one of the cheaper prices we're going to be seeing for agents, relatively speaking, moving forward, so I would say why not, in my personal opinion. And then getting to the big one, talking about knives here, it's such a mixed bag because knives are such a broad category. We've got things such as your Karambit Doppler, and we've got things such as your Navaja Safari Mesh. What I've been seeing over the past year or so is the finish is the thing that's the most important when we're coming to an investing standpoint. People want a good finish, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if your knife is a Navaja or a Karambit or a Butterfly. People are always going to prefer a good finish on a bad knife versus a good knife with a bad finish. Now, this is just my inferences from what I've seen over the past year or so, watching the markets, watching the data, so it's obviously up for interpretation of what knife you think is going to be the best investment, as obviously every single one is an individual, but I would say at the end of the day, finish is what people are looking for. That's all I got. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.